and welcome to Feed Your Brain. I am your host, Andrea Paratto. When do most families that are caring for adults with dementia and Alzheimer's usually seek help? When they are physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausted. I am joined today by Jean Makesh, CEO of the Lantern Group. Hello, Jean.
Hi, Andrea.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I have a big question for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. In your estimation, how long has an individual with Alzheimer's or dementia been living with the disease by the time they arrive at a memory care facility, and what impact can that have on them?
Great question. Excellent question. This is something that as a provider I struggle with. I sometimes feel that I wish I had seen this senior. This senior was my client 15 years ago.
Yes.
Or 20 years ago.
I experienced the same.
And there's so much more I could have done for the senior. And I know it's not possible all the time. Studies show that before an individual gets an official diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, they've been living with the disease for anywhere between 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
That's what the study shows. Yeah, 15 to 20 years.
That's a long span of time.
That is, because when you look at the stages of the disease, you've got 7 stages, and each stage, there's a time frame for each stage, and it pretty much qualifies that 15 to 20 years because of the time frame that one experiences or is in that stage, in that particular stage. There are some stages, that would last for 7 years. There are some stages that would last for 10 years. There are some stages that would last for 4 years or 5 years. So it makes sense that they would be living with the disease for at least a minimum of 15 years before they get an official diagnosis. And the reason being is early signs of Alzheimer's memory loss. Mm-hmm. And you and I, as we get older, our memories are not the way it used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I still remember that when I was a child, I could remember everyone's name. Everyone's name. And I would get, I would look at my teacher and go like, why can't she or he remember every child's name? And I can.
Phone numbers.
And phone numbers, my God.
I don't know a phone number now.
Yes. I don't like this new smartphones because it has made it smart.
Too easy, right?
Made me not smart.
Not smart.
Intellectually, I should say. Because now I don't remember even my children's phone number.
No.
I don't know the numbers because it's so easy for me to look their numbers up. And as we get older, we think that it's because of age. We're becoming forgetful. So we don't really seek medical help.
Okay. That makes sense.
And on top of that, we also engage in very good compensatory strategies. Good compensatory strategies where we may have reminders on our phone. We may have a little book where we write things down, or we can follow a certain sequence to retrieve our memories. The memories that we cannot recall right away. So that all helps. So we think that's normal. That's normal process of aging. Actually, memory loss is not a normal process of aging. It's not. Just because you're old doesn't mean that you're forgetful or you lose your memory. It's because you have too much information to process, and you have to cut through all the noise and sort through, because your brain now has all those memories. Like my brain has memories worth about 45 years of age, 45 years of memories. And it's all, filed in different cabinets in my brain, and I got to figure a way to pull every single one of them out. It's like a computer. You've got folders and files, and there's a certain path that you have to follow. If you want to go into, you're looking for a file, you got to really follow. You got to go figure out where it is, go to that folder, and then go to the file.
And remember the name of the file.
And then remember the name of the file, exactly, what to look for, right? Exactly. In a similar way, our brain, has followed the same pattern, and they're able to retrieve through various cues, visual cues, auditory cues. So that's another reason I think they before you get an official diagnosis, it's almost like 20 years. That could be one of the reasons.
Can early diagnosis facilitate and enhance the quality of life for somebody that's living with Alzheimer's disease?
In my opinion, absolutely. I think so. See, for example, let's say that if I have a genetic predisposition, which means that my mom has Alzheimer's disease or my grandparents had Alzheimer's disease, then I know that the chance or the risk I have that risk. I'm carrying that risk. So let's say that when I start experiencing forgetfulness, and I have to consistently use compensatory strategies, I'm subjecting myself to risks where it could be very harmful to myself. Since I have a predisposition, since I have a genetic connection, it may not be a bad idea for me to get checked. Now, well, the thing is, if you get checked and they do a CT scan, and then let's say that they tell me that I have amyloid plaques and tau protein in my brain, how would that impact me? I'm in my 40s and I'm going, oh my gosh, I've got this now, and am I going to live with that fear? So that is something for us to consider and think about. But if you have a genetic predisposition, I would say, yeah, it's not a bad idea, at least to take the MMSE test or assessment, or other cognitive tests.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Well, thank you very much for that. That's interesting.
And may I? Can I?
Yes, please.
One more. As I was thinking about the early diagnosis, I want to talk a little bit about behaviors.
Please.
See, for me, a behavior is a form of expression.
Yes.
It's a form of expression. If you see me upset, or if you see me doing something that is not unusual for me, that is not that's not something that you see on a regular basis, which means that that's something that's bothering me. I mean, when you look at a child, I can think of my youngest son, and when he was a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, his form of expression of his dissatisfaction was to cry,
mm-hmm.
to scream,
mm-hmm.
to yell,
mm-hmm.
or to disagree
mm-hmm.
with me all the time. I see that with my daughter even now. If she doesn't like what I'm saying, and she doesn't know how to argue that in a very healthy way
mm-hmm.
with me, she would say things to me that are hurtful.
Yes.
And those are my cues. I know that she's not happy, or something is bothering her in her school. Someone said something to her, and she doesn't know how to articulate that or share that with me, because she thinks that if she shares that information, I may think that she's not able to stand for herself.
Right.
And she would behave a different way. So the behaviors, I see behavior as a certain form of expression. And this is very important. And I think that anyone that has a disease, as they go through the disease process, they will lose the ability to express verbally.
Okay.
Articulate verbally.
Right.
And their only form of expression could be through certain behaviors.
Okay.
Okay. Now, why is behavior important? When it comes to Alzheimer's disease, let's say that I have the disease, and I don't get an official diagnosis for 15 years. Okay. I have now, because of the disease, I may have developed a certain form of expression, certain behaviors that may not be functional, that may not be appropriate.
Right.
Okay. Now I get my official diagnosis, then I'm going through the disease process. Now I get my diagnosis. Let's say that my family members think that, they're embarrassed by the diagnosis, or they are, or it brings shame to them, or there's a form of guilt, or other emotions that are not healthy. They could ignore the diagnosis, or they may say that, I feel bad for my wife, or I feel bad for my mom. It is my responsibility. I was not a good daughter. I was not a good son. I need to take care of my mom or take care of my wife. I'm not being a good husband. It could be anything, any role. And then you don't get medical intervention. And that behavior that I'm expressing, okay, or the individual with Alzheimer expresses, and if they keep expressing the same behavior, if they keep presenting the same form of expression and behavior, what happens is, because of neuroplasticity is where you're able to shape and form your brain. You can build your brain. You can make your brain the way you want. And along with neuroplasticity comes learning. The brain learns certain things. What is 2 plus 2?
4.
You don't think twice, right?
Nope.
5 plus 5.
10.
What did you have for breakfast Sunday morning? Now you're thinking. It's not a conscious memory. You're thinking.
Right?
But the 2 plus 2, 4, and 5 plus 5, 10, you were able to just say it right away because you've repeated that learning more than 400 times. For neuroplasticity to happen, for the brain to learn a new skill, a new art, a new craft, a new learning, that has to be repeated at least 400 times. That's what it says. Anywhere between 400 to 450 times.
I didn't learn about breakfast on Sunday 400 times.
Exactly, because I didn't ask you that question 400 times. So
Right.
you didn't have to produce that information 400 times. Plus 2, you had to produce that information throughout your
Yes.
life.
Yes.
In one way or the other, that it came into play. So the brain has remembered that, and there's actually a network just for that alone. So when you have behaviors that are not appropriate, when they're dysfunctional, and when you don't get medical intervention or appropriate psychotropic drugs or counseling or things like that is very needed, that particular behavior, when it is presented or when it is practiced, I use the word practice because when it's presented every time, and if it's presented more than 400, 450 times, the brain learns that as a new task. And then it becomes very difficult for you to wean that individual off that inappropriate behavior, like screaming, yelling, getting up in the middle of the night and walking out. When you're in an environment, you go around plucking things, tearing things apart.
Okay.
Breaking stuff.
So it's in essence, it's like not redirecting a child's behavior so that they learn a better way to express themselves. If we continue to let the behavior just go and not actually focus on the dysfunctional behavior, it'll just continue.
It could become a permanent behavior as they go through the disease process. If the theory of neuroplasticity is true, what I just shared will happen. Okay?
Wow.
So that's why it is so important. Early intervention is very, very important. Early intervention is very, very important. If you have a predisposition, get an assessment done. I do assessments on a regular basis on myself.
Do you?
Just to make sure, because who knows? And more so now they're saying that studies are showing, when I say studies show that Alzheimer's disease is a lifestyle disease. So I may not have a genetic predisposition, but if I live a very unhealthy lifestyle, smoking excessively, drinking excessively, doing drugs, even marijuana will prune the neurons. Studies show that. And if I don't eat well, and if I don't sleep well.
What about head trauma?
Head trauma is huge. That also increases your risk. If one has Down syndrome increases the risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. So the key thing is our lifestyle plays an important role. If I don't study, research, read, learn, that's why I always like to question the status quo. I always like to challenge the status quo. If you try to tell me if you try to convince me of something, I don't believe right away. I'll have to go do my own research, because not that I'm not a believer, I will believe you, because now you've triggered my curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've said something that I've not seen, I've not known. Now I want to go learn about it. So those are some of the things I think keeps our brain healthy. So if it's important to get that intervention right away. Your dad does not have Alzheimer's because of you. You didn't do anything wrong, or you didn't do anything bad. That guilt should not drive the intervention process. Or your husband is having the disease because of something you did, or you could have done better, or you could have. No, that's not true. That is not at all true. I'm telling you directly, looking into the camera, that's not true. The disease is, the downside of the disease, the problem with this disease is, unlike other diseases, it not only affects the individual that has the disease,
Mm-hmm.
it also impacts and affects the disease, the people around. I always say it's not the disease of the individual, it's actually the disease of the family
Mm-hmm.
and friends. It profoundly affects everyone around that person, profoundly affects everyone around that person. So it's very important to get that early intervention. And again, it's not because of you.
Well, that's good.
It's not because of you. It's not what you did, or you could have done better. Early intervention is very, very important.
Well, good. Thank you very much. I think that if we got an earlier diagnosis, then we could actually start working a little bit harder on our brain power and hopefully slow the progression.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.